Okay, so we're live. I'm here with Latasha Fields. I'm about to go live on Instagram, so give me a moment because it takes a minute for the technology to catch up with itself. There we are. Now we're live everywhere. Oh, look at you with your Liberty mug.
Yeah. That's what we're fighting for, right?
Liberty, baby. So it's funny because I did the live just a couple days ago when you were missed, and then you came on and you were like a fire hose, and I wanted to keep going and I had to drop off. So we have a full half hour, which is exciting. So first of all, you run a micro school, but you also homeschool your children.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a homeschool co-op, micro school, and I homeschool my children, and we have an online school as well. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So, and your micro school, tell us what your because there are a lot of different definitions for micro schools. So tell us your definition.
Yes. So basically, we've been homeschooling, like I said, almost 18 and a half years now. And so we've been having the school for 17 of those years. Now, way back 17 years ago, of course, we wasn't using the term micro school. We were just a private school. God just called us to be and just have it as an extension of our ministry, just an evangelical Christian academy to help other families.
Right.
We have been homeschooling our daughter for a year. And so with our school, we use the homeschool methodology, very individualized. We've been using ACE, Accelerated Christian Education, for 17 years. That's the core curriculum that we use. And so when families inquire about our school or they enroll, we give each child a diagnostic. And so the diagnostic determine where they at in each subject, whether they're learning gaps or whether they're accelerated. And so after the diagnostic, we get a prescription, if you will, an academic prescription, and each child's curriculum is tailor fitted to their unique needs. And so we have a K through 12 school. We're a non-graded school, and because be in various levels of their academics. So we're non-graded, meaning that 8-year-old chronologically probably should be third grade, but they could be doing fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade academics. So from that perspective, when I do my parent orientation and I tell parents we're non-graded, the only time we kind of worry about grade levels, if you will, is probably when the kids get to high school. Because then once they get to high school, and it doesn't matter chronologically their high school, once they get to high school academics, then we start honing in on what is required to graduate, especially if they're going to a 4-year institution or a trade school. So we kind of cultivate the uniqueness of each student. We don't just automatically, because you're 10, you're 15. No, it's all about the academic level of where you are for mastery. And so that's kind of the bulk of how we run the school. Is very, very individualized.
What do you do to teach character?
Oh, so we are Christian, of course, but obviously we're very intentional about our Christianity, about our faith. So we teach a biblical worldview. And so we do worship, we do prayer. The curriculum that we use, I like the way that the Bible is interwoven into the curriculum, and even other subjects that we supplement, even if we may order something that may not have biblical principles interwoven in it, we make sure that we are very intentional about teaching a biblical worldview. For example, we teach financial literacy. That is in our school. That comes without say. But we use Dave Ramsey's curriculum because he does interwoven the scriptures into financial literacy. When we teach Black history, which is American history, we call it History 365 because we teach it year round. And so even though we have to teach Black history, and there's not a lot of biblical principles per se interwoven, but we can tell a lot of the Black Americans, of course, that was their foundation. So we make sure that when we teach Black history, that we're teaching it from a biblical perspective, using the Bible side by side, so that we can make sure that we guard our children's heart, that they don't come out with any prejudice or any racism concerning what has happened. So we teach the good and the bad and the ugly. And again, the foundation and the way we teach History 365 is using the Bible side by side. And understanding and implementing those character traits. And so another thing that we do every week for years, for 17 years, we teach a character trait every single week, every single morning. Like this week, our character trait is modesty. And so we're teaching modesty every single morning. So God give me and Ms. Angela different ways to implement it. The children are involved. We go through examples and illustrations of how to be modest. And one thing that we're honing in this week, modesty is not just the outward, but it's the purity of the mind. right? Because the word of God says, so as a man thinketh, so is he. So we just go through that every week, and then we do a Bible memory every single month. So every month there's a different Bible memory, and we literally rehearse it every single day for a whole entire month. And so this month is Psalms 33. So that's the Bible verse that we're doing this month for the month of April. And so that's how we're very intentional. And even when the children misbehave, because kids, we implement the scriptures and we use the character trait for that week or previous character trait. So we're very intentional about our language that we use in the school. And we're very intentional about combating other languages that we use. For one of my pet peeves that we don't say children are smart in this school. We don't use that language because I believe everybody is wonderfully and fearfully made. I believe all children are unique. And so that's why I thank God for the curriculum we use. We use the diagnostic, and we teach every single baby right where they are. So when kids go through things, and I still have kids leaving. Sorry. Okay. Angela's down there. You still have kids leaving. So when they come to a subject that they find is easy or hard, and kids will say things, and so we teach them to say, well, that was just foundational to you, that was just fundamental to you, right? Because I don't want them judging and comparing themselves to other children, right? So we're very intentional about cultivating an environment where they begin to believe and receive that they are unique and there's nobody like you. So you don't have to worry about what anybody else is doing in this classroom. You are your own special person before God.
Did you start, when you started your micro school, did you start with this idea that, well, we got to make sure we teach character? And if you did, or if it just came sort of as you went along and you're like, well, we really should be teaching more character. How are we going to do that? Why?
Yeah, so it came right at the front because when God called me and my husband to homeschool, his call to us was for discipleship. So it was always at the forefront. And so when I pulled my daughter out of public school, I had no other frame of reference. I didn't know anybody that was homeschooled because we're from Louisiana. I don't know if I shared that with you, Sam, but we're originally from Louisiana. That's where my whole little story begins. And so we've only been in Chicago almost 14 years. And so God sent us.
You pulled your daughter out of school. She was your oldest?
Yeah, she's 28 now. She was my oldest.
And so how many grades of school did she do?
She went to 4th grade in the public school.
She went through 4th grade, and then you were like, oh, we're done with that.
No. So short version of the story. Nope. There was nothing prior. And so funny story. We took her to school the first day of school. We had bought the book bags, book set. I'm telling you, I had nothing. Nothing. We had no problems with the public schools. As far as me and my husband was concerned, we had the perspective everybody else had. Like, you go to school, there was nothing. My background is real estate. My husband is a barber. We living. We're ministers. We're just living, right? There's nothing. And literally, Sam, I dropped that girl off at school the first day of school, 2006, August 12th, August 13th, 2006. And I left the school, Sam. I got a mile up the road, and I just heard God as audibly as me and you were speaking in my spirit. He said, go back and get her. You're going to homeschool. I had never in my life heard of homeschooling. I never had met anybody homeschooling. Matter of fact, I thought like everybody else. Afterwards, it was illegal. I don't know what I thought. But at any rate, I began to weep. It just made me just weep and bawl before the Lord. I had to pull up on the side of the road. And I went back to the school, and I was still crying. And the principal and them, I guess they just thought I was crazy because I just kept telling them, the Lord said, I'm going to homeschool my baby. Give me my baby. And the principal came from behind the counter, and she was just consoling me on my shoulders. And all I could tell them was, the Lord said, give me my baby. I got to homeschool her. And when they called her off the speaker, and she came, and she's little, she see me crying, she crying, and I'm just hugging her, mama go teach you, mama go teach you. And then the people just like, well, ma'am, fill out this drop slip. I didn't know Louisiana law. I didn't know nothing, zero. And we got in the car. Then I called my husband. I'm crying. Oh, the Lord told me, and I pulled this girl out of school. He was like, literally, he said, let's do it. And here we are 18 years later. And so then when I got home, I began to research, and I was like, oh, because I'm like, what the heck is God telling me this? It's like after the Holy Ghost high come down, then I get to my own self, like, what in the world did I just do? And then I began to research, and I seen, what a world. But I wasn't led to connect right then. So for a whole year, I homeschooled her solo. We didn't connect with any homeschool groups, no co-ops. We didn't do anything. But in the midst of that year, towards the end of her first year being homeschooled, the Lord began to deal with me about other families. And that's when he shared with me that we had to open up a school. And so August of 2007, we opened up our school with 30 students. And so again, here we are, all these years later.
So you're saying she did one day of what, kindergarten or first grade?
No, she went from kindergarten or preschool all the way to fourth grade. Yeah,
Oh, I thought you were correcting me. So she did go to she went to the first day of fourth grade.
Yes.
And you were like, uh-oh.
Yeah, God was like
telling me don't do this again. Yes. We did 3-4 years of it, whatever.
Yeah.
And now we're done. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And so then the next year, 1 year of homeschooling under your belt, you're like, I can do this for other families and show them how to do it and stuff.
Yeah. So God was like, this whole discipleship thing had to come full circle, because in the midst of that year, he began to show us, he began to reveal so much to me. It was just amazing, of the indoctrinations in the public school system, the depravity, the disproportionate, the poor proficiencies and everything. And so I just immediately, if you will, Sam, overnight, I became this homeschool advocate, unplanned. My background was real estate and business. So all of a sudden, I just become this parental rights person, this homeschool advocate, seemingly overnight. And I just started losing my mind. I didn't calm down a lot. Compared to people that know me, they would know I've calmed down a lot. And so I just went just like this mad lady, just telling everybody, get their kids out of public school and stuff like that. And then God began to really show me the history of public education. And when he really revealed to me how, in my opinion, how the church dropped the ball. Right? When they legislated the Bible out, when they legislated prayer out, the church should have bow face, right? And then he started really teaching me civil rights and all these things. And it's like, and this is me, Latasha Fields and Ronald Fields, my husband, we believe we should have never went in. And so God began to reteach me history, showing me Carter G. Woodson, how all this stuff that we've been fighting for now over 91 years, Booker T. Washington, I mean, he just started depositing. And I'm just like, oh my God, what have we done? What have we done? You know, and here we are, 2025, and we got children coming out of public school with zero proficiency. So that's
the administrators are saying that that's okay, because they're not doing anything about it.
No,
they're doing zero about the fact that their schools are failing to educate.
Yes,
there's no changes there, but they do want to take away your rights.
To do it with freedom, with liberty, right? And so we know we're dealing with HB2827 here in Illinois, and so it's just the audacity of them. It's such hypocrisy. It's tyrannical. It's draconian. It's insane. You know, how dare you? You know, I can just go on and on with the thesaurus here, right? And it's like, what are we talking about? You know, and as I shared on your show and many others, you know, seriously, from the Illinois State Board of Education, they are seriously lacking proficiency. And so I'm Black. So of course I'm gonna look at what Black children are doing. And so even across the state of Illinois and in the city of Chicago, how is it possible that Black children are at the end of the spectrum? They are doing the worst in the entire state. So I cannot help but think it's something systemic going on. And then again, when I look at through Black history, you know, and I see that this has been a fight for equitable and equality education for almost 100 years. So I'm saying to Black people, you think it's not working anymore? I mean, like the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over and over.
But the question is, did it ever work?
It never worked. And that's my point. It never worked, right? And I went to public school, many of us, right? I just feel like my husband, we just feel like we got out by the skin of our teeth. You know, we strive, we thrive, we got out. But for our ancestors to have fought, and everybody, you know, white people, the white abolitionists, everybody to have fought and came alongside of Martin Luther King and all those that fought those battles then, and to get to really 2020, and to get to 2020 and everybody have this veil removed off of their eyes in terms of government education across the country, not just Illinois, across the country, to see the low proficiency rates of all these babies across demographic is absolutely appalling.
But it's not even just the low proficiency.
Oh, no.
It's also the child abuse that's taking place, the grooming, the sexual manipulation of children.
Yes.
That, you know, and then, because we do have to get to HB 2827, you know, and then add to that their audacity to say, but you guys, you're clearly not doing things right. We need more supervision over you guys because you're the people who may abuse your children. You're the people who may, fail to teach your children proper sexual technique at the age of 6 or whatever. And here they are. So we have a comment here. They keep gaslighting us with this HB 2827 bill and telling us we are overreacting because it's just registration. Just registration. Papers, please. Look, it's just a tattoo on your arm. It's just a number. It doesn't mean it's just a number. We just want to track it. By the way, that's how they got the guns.
Yeah.
It's just registration. Just register your guns.
Yeah, it's okay. We're not going to do you anything. All this fear mongering, Tara Costa Howard said, we're just fear mongering. No, we're not. We're reading your bill. Some of us have read your 60-page bill. No,
we've also read history.
Yes, we know, right? And so that whole idea that it's just a form, and then she keep touting the other 38 states. Okay, and this is the thing. I don't know if you've seen it when I was on WTT. I was ready when she said that, because I'm like, okay, you're naming Florida and Louisiana. Then I'm like, oh God, please give me the mic back. I'm from Louisiana, right? And so I'm like, Louisiana does not have this oppressive registration. Literally, Louisiana has 2 homeschool options. One option, which both are voluntary if you want to homeschool. One is if you want government approval, if you want to seek the Board of Education approval, that's option 1. Or 2, if you're a non-public school not seeking state approval, that's option 2. And of course, that's the option I've always advocated for when I was in Louisiana, option 2, which option 2, Sam, only require now it's online, because I've been gone almost 14 years, but now the form is online, and it's the exact same information that we had to do when we had to mail the letter to the State Board of Education, okay? Literally, your school year, your school name, how many students, nothing else. We can screenshot the form, nothing else. Your school's information system, either the family or the school leader's information system, and then you hit submit. 3 steps: school name, the year, the number of students, not their names, not their gender identity, not their race, not their sex, literally how many.
Right. By the way, California, very similar. You're saying you declare yourself a private school. They say, what's the name? Who's the principal? How many students? What years are they? Basically, that's it. At least when I lived there. Here in Florida, it's also fairly similar, but now they've got all the money that's coming in because of the PrEP Act or the PEP Act or whatever it's called. And so they've changed some things. And now if you take the money, you're no longer considered a homeschooler, which means you won't have the protections of the homeschoolers. I'm just saying. But more than that, HB 2827 is not just registration. There's more involved, because you need to prove that you graduated, right? With a diploma. It's a diploma that you need, right?
Yes. And then again, Louisiana doesn't require teacher qualifications.
Right. But you can get a diploma without knowing how to read or do math in the state of Oregon. So really, where did they get off requiring a diploma?
Exactly.
And in the state of New Jersey, just this year, you don't have to pass any kind of test requirement to become a teacher. They're not doing any kind of screening for academic proficiency for teachers.
Wow.
Because it's not about the academics.
No.
And you understood that early on. You said, this is about character first and foremost, right?
Yeah.
And then it's about academics.
Yeah.
And I think that you can't really teach academics without character.
No, you cannot. And so we know, I mean, it sounds like a cliche, but it's serious. The government school system is not educating, but indoctrinating. It's all about the political agendas. And that's why Representative Tara Costa Howard keep rebuttaling when something is said about the education portfolio. Well, I'm going to read exactly what it said, because she keeps saying it's misinformation. It's not misinformation. And if it is, you put it in there. We're just reading from your bill. So it says that under the first, she rebuttals the criminal truancy component of it. Well, that is in the bill section 2610 and 2611 of the Illinois School Code, that if you do not file that form, that triggers truancy. And from there, it could be a Class C misdemeanor. It could be jail time and a fine. We're not making that up, Representative Howard. Go look at your bill. It's in the bill. You cited that in the bill, and it'll trigger DCFS. And then with the educational portfolio, the bill says that they can come into your home at any time for any given reason. The bill says that. And again, it cites the Illinois School Code, Section 26. And it says that we have to produce an education portfolio that is satisfactory to the school code. And so my rebuttal is, as a Christian family, as many of us, then I'm concerned, and I think I mentioned this on your show the other day, I'm concerned that I know that the Illinois School Code has changed as of 2021. Pritzker signed it into law. Comprehensive sex ed is now a part of Illinois public school system. Representative Howard, LGBT history is a part of Illinois public school system. Representative Howard, what are you talking about? If it has to satisfy, how are you, well, you didn't put an exemption in your bill. You didn't put that. Even though it has to satisfy, homeschoolers that submit the homeschool declaration will be exempt from comprehensive sex ed and exempt from the LGBT history that requires that 8th graders know this knowledge or they cannot graduate from 8th grade. There is no exemption in your bill to say that that's not going to happen to you all. Well, it has to satisfy.
Yes. And the problem is they don't define satisfy. In any case, they don't define the word, which sounds weird, but that's how when they make it nebulous, then they can manipulate it to mean anything that they want. And so satisfy is the person who happens to be the person who is assigned to go into your home to decide if they're satisfied. They could just as easily decide that they're not satisfied, write you up, send Child Protective Services, separate you from your children. And I know this sounds like fear mongering, but honestly, they've already done it. They did it in the state of California. They sent a woman to jail because her daughter had a truancy record because she had sickle cell anemia and was repeatedly admitted to the hospital. Yeah. And they wrote her up for truancy and sent the mother off to prison. So the idea that this is fear mongering is absurd. This is simply dealing with reality. Yeah. And the woman who is the representative who is saying, no, you're gaslighting, well, she has a vested interest. You can't trust her. You can't take her word for it. Yeah. Her interest is in getting a bill with her name on it passed, right? And right now it's out of committee. So where does it go now?
Yes, so it's going to go to the House. And so that's what we're all still fighting against and trying to reach these legislators, because, you know, Illinois is democratically governed. The Republicans have no power in the state of Illinois. The majority are Democratic legislators. And so that's where we are. We're trying to, first and foremost, we're praying, right? And then people are still calling their legislators, emailing, et cetera, to hope that they have a change of heart and they agree that this bill is unnecessary. That they do not need to govern homeschooling because it's hypocrisy. We have a serious problem in our public education system. There's an illiteracy. There's a crisis for literacy here. These babies are coming out with zero proficiency. And so you need to fix that. Then we have a budget in Chicago of $9.4 billion. So it's not a money issue. So don't come with the money issue. There's a misallocation of funds, but it's not money. They're raping us with taxes, okay? So it's not a money issue. It's a misallocation. And then when you think about the abuse, Chicago public school system is under investigation right now, and they've been under investigation about 2 decades. And as of January 2025, the Inspector General is still investigating Chicago public school system for over 1,800 sexual abuse allegations. And then there were 36 people on the do not hire list for the athletic department, and they hired them anyway, and they sexually assaulted those kids. And so when Representative Howard and all her colleagues want to say it may be abuse in the homeschool world, no, you need to really look at abuse that you have jurisdiction over, because there's evidence of abuse with those sexual abuse, molestation, grooming, kidnapping, raping of those children inside of government institutions. Look like to me, you need a bill to legislate that. We talk about a form. Well, what about the form that 36 teachers that clearly have applications, job descriptions? What about those forms? And they still sexually abuse those children, somebody else's children, because we don't send our children to school to be sexually assaulted. Look like to me, you need to be dealing with those 36 people. So
I wish there was that you had somehow a bigger platform. I wish that there was somebody in the state of Illinois who could take this up. It sounds like there's a lawsuit here. I haven't been able to find it yet because they haven't passed the bill. But the moment they pass the bill, I feel like they should be setting themselves up to be sued for hypocrisy. That's not really a thing, but for passing legislation for a body to govern that has clearly no right to govern, other people. There's another comment here. There's a deeper, darker agenda of power and control. We see through the lies. Thank you, Latasha, for articulating this in a way that exposes their lies. And thank you, Sam, for covering great clarification. I think it's important for people to understand really what's afoot here. There's no reason that they should be pursuing this. That makes sense if their interest was in the welfare of children. If their interest was actually the welfare or let's say the education of children, then they would be much better served going to the schools and trying to fix that. There's a lot more children that they could serve and protect if they went right to the schools. But see, it's not about that. It is about control, and it's about a darkness that we see creeping into and through our culture today. And this darkness is the abuse of children, the abuse of the vulnerable, the abuse of the Christ image bearers, right? They want the innocence of Christ. They need to pervert it. And they can do that through children. And they've done it through abortion for many, many years. And now they've ramped it up to go and get the kids who are in schools. And it pleases them to no end to get the children who are most protected. That would be your children, right? That would be the homeschooled children or the children in the micro schools, the non-government controlled entities.
Absolutely. So it's a spirit of Moloch. And we know who Moloch is throughout scripture. It's a spirit of sacrificing the innocent for gain, for power. It is very dark, and I agree with you, and it is extremely dark. And it is darker than we probably have time to even express on this show. But it is a power grab. It is an agenda. And that's what I called it out as a religious persecution. And that's just what it is.
Yeah. When you convince a child that they should cut off body parts to feel better, that's abuse. Because there is no scientific evidence, and they're always claiming science. There's no scientific evidence that it is effective. In fact, all of the scientific evidence points to how ineffective it is and really what eventual torture it is for a child to go through a surgery such as that and the pills that ensue and all of that. There is financial remuneration and there is some perverse spiritual satisfaction in these people, and they have risen to seats of power while you and I and people like us were distracted, sort of looking the other way, not realizing, honestly, and I've said this, I said this a lot, and I'm tired of saying it, but good cannot perceive of the depravity of evil. And so you and I were just, and I'm including you, and this may or may not be true, but we're just sort of going around our way and saying, well, this is better, right? The homeschooling is better. It's better for the kids. The school paradigm will never beat the homeschool paradigm. And we just want people to know that. And then 2020 happened. And everybody said, holy crap, what are they doing in those schools? This is terrible. And meanwhile, we were thinking they were just not teaching the kids well. They were just not, teaching them how to read. They wanted to teach them how to read. They just couldn't teach them how to read.
It's darker. It's darker. It is a diabolical agenda. It is a globalist takeover, right? It's antichrist. It really is. It's an antichrist agenda. And so this is the thing with a bill like HB2827. It's not necessarily if, but it's when, right? So we know as believers, if we're following scripture and we're following the consistency of prophecy, you know, it's coming, right? Sooner or later, this type of governmental takeover is coming. Okay. So I believe this is a season where God is calling his remnant and he's calling to fortify us. We got to have our heads like flint and have our tongues cleave to the roof of our mouth. We're going to have to be mentally tough, sober-minded, and strong. And that's why we don't play with making disciples of our children. We don't lead with academics. We lead with discipleship, because Sam, man, you could be dead and gone. These children got to fight these demons out here.
Yeah.
And so we have to get these children ready to stand against the wiles of the enemy. And so that's why I don't play politics with these people. I don't play trying to be politically correct. I fight to be biblically correct, because I know we're not wrestling against flesh and blood. We're dealing with a spiritual battle, a war zone for the souls of these children. And so people better wake up playing with these people down in these legislative offices, because I'm not playing with them. Okay, I have no anything for them but the word of God. And so that's what we're dealing with. We're really dealing with some spiritual entities, and people have sold their souls to this agenda. They have bought, they have been paid for, and they are going to swing the pendulum with this agenda. And I'm not playing with that.
Yes. And you are standing in the way. Right. And we are raising young people to stand in the way, because that's what's right. And I just want to paint a quick picture for people, because ultimately the goal is this: children will not be raised by their families. Children will be raised in institutions to be enslaved. There will be nobody looking out for them, trying to protect them. They won't know any better because they're children. They're malleable. If you haven't read Ayn Rand's article, Los Comprachicos, I highly recommend it, because it basically says that the child buyers would maim the children early enough that the children wouldn't remember the trauma as they grew, but later they would be maimed, and therefore provide entertainment value for the elite, for the other people, because it was funny to look at the deformed person, trying to do whatever they were trying to do. And yes, it's disgusting. And so I want people to understand that is the agenda, that children would have no advocates, no protections, and they would simply be available to be used as slaves, as sex slaves, as manual labor, as whatever. That is the goal. And so I it's this heavy, right? But people have to understand, and this is not hyperbole. HB 2827 is a step in that direction. And if it's not, I defy anybody that's supporting it to come on with me, and Latasha will bring her on too.
Yeah, come on.
And refute it.
Yeah.
And make the case that somehow the idiot product of the system that you legislators appoint to supervise the likes of me and the likes of Latasha, who has successfully educated young people, and we can put it to a test of wits if you want. We can put it to a test of accomplishments if you want.
Yes.
But there is no way you're coming into the home and telling us that we aren't doing sex ed properly or satisfactorily. So that's my rant. Okay, this bill isn't just about oversight. It's part of a larger agenda to strip parents of their God-given right to raise and educate their children. The push for government control over homeschooling is a direct challenge to biblical principles of family and faith. We are called to train up our children in the way they should go, not hand that responsibility over to a system that it keeps going, and I can't find the rest of it. It hasn't posted the rest of it yet. We are not called to turn our children over to that system. And I hope that people are starting to understand how demonic the system has become. I'm not going to argue whether it was meant to do that or it didn't, whatever it wanted to, people in charge, whatever. All I'm saying is it is demonic now. You are better off taking your children out and doing nothing. Literally do nothing with them. Don't teach them anything. Don't show them anything. Keep them off of You got to protect them from the internet. That's the one thing you got to do. If you do nothing else, they will still be better off than if you send them into those horrible, horrible places to learn to not think, to learn to obey, to learn to conform, to learn to be abused, all of that stuff.
Mhm.
Do you know, I just went and I was looking something up for an article I was writing. The 90%, I think, of children feel that they were abused by at least one teacher, feel that they were bullied. Sorry, the word was bullying. Feel that they were bullied by at least one of their teachers. It's not necessarily the students, the other students that are doing the bullying. I'm just saying.
Mhm.
So, you know, it's time to wake up. And if you have the tremendous privilege to become a parent,
Yes.
take it seriously and
Mhm.
do not send your children into the institutions.
Yes. We're calling for the churches and people like you and I that can open up our homes. I call it bring them to your kitchen table. I call them kitchen table schools. You know, as believers, the Bible says, love thy neighbors thyself. So get 2-3 babies off your block, whatever, and help. Just try to undergird other parents, right? And you made the point where people have to see that this is very diabolical. And one last point about the bill, there's a clause in that bill that states that the children of Illinois, the fundamental goal of Illinois is that every student's educational development is to serve the public purposes of the state. That in itself is slavery.
Well, yeah, that's
If nothing else,
the kids, let's put them to work for us.
Yeah. So parents, as you're listening all over the country, just that, if that doesn't wake you up, and even the parents that have their children in public school, listen to me. It said every student, not just homeschool students, is to your child's educational development is to serve the public purposes of the state. Your children are not state property. Your children do not belong to the government. Your babies belong to you. They're not cash cows to serve government. That's not even our Constitution. We're a Constitution of the people, by the people, for the people. No. Government, you serve me. I don't serve you. I elect you. I pay your salary.
Right.
So this is demonic. That's why we're saying this is demonic. If you see nothing else that we've said today that will resonate with you as being ungodly, that should.
Brilliant. Latasha Fields, thank you so much for coming back and doing this. And we'll do it again soon, I hope.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Sam.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Audience. Thank you. Bless you.
All right, everybody, remember, speak truth and speak it boldly. We'll see you next time.